but it's with a great deal of honor that I introduce Pat Mahoney. His son Steve is over there, Jim Albright, and his lovely bride, Kathy. And I'm going to let you guys have the mic and tell your story, and maybe we'll just start with Pat, pass it down.
You ready? Is it coming through?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good rough voice. Yeah. Anyway, what are we talking about today? Help me out. You're supposed to help me out.
How long were you here?
You're being held responsible. Help me out.
Yes, how long?
7 years. Anyway, I think we were supposed to talk about the last day, how it all started out. I went over and you had to be really somebody in the news media to even be eligible to come over here. And most of them were pretty old men. And they had these monstrous cameras at that time, and I said, oh my God, we're gonna have some heart attacks, which we did not. How, I don't know. But they literally ran up that hill. Do you remember that hill as you walked up? They ran up it. Because they wanted to be the first to get the story out to their own presses and what have you. They're from all over the world. Germany, France, Italy, China, you name it. Every place. And that's my son right there. He's trying to get a picture so he remembers who I look like. Yes, Steve, you're supposed to be here.
Is there an incentive to work here opposed to another prison?
Back then.
Back then?
No, the wages were the same no matter where you went in the United States. So there was no incentive. And go ahead.
What do you mean an incentive? My rent was sky high here to live on this island. $21 a month. And everything was furnished, plus my washing and ironing and my dry cleaning, everything was furnished. And I looked right across over there to that beautiful San Francisco. It was $2,000 or more a month. I'd call that quite an incentive, wouldn't you? Why did you stay here, Jim?
See, he lived in the high rent district. Our rent was $16.50 a month.
Yeah, but you only made $4,080.
Yeah, but it's still 21 bucks. I could add. So anyway, wasn't that a pretty good shot? About 21 bucks. Then if I went up, then I'd go 25.
You know, I remember the cantina. Who ran the cantina? I don't remember who ran the cantina.
He was an officer.
He was an officer.
Shima, and then there was that Death Reach was another young man that ran it.
There's a child of a guy who just says, I remember the cantina, or the store, correct?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, do you want to tell them about, because it really was a town, what kind of amenities did you have?
How do I know she didn't shop it? Officers were in the store. It was actually the officers' club store, and so they would appoint an officer to run it, somebody that would volunteer to do it. And you bought staples in there. They'd have some canned foods. They did have a little meat counter, and they had the bread and milk and things like that. It was a little bit higher because they had to get it over here. But if you needed something, you could go get it. Most of the people stopped, we parked it, we docked at Fort Mason, and most of the people shopped at the Safeway store right outside of Fort Mason. And with me being one of the last ones out, we were over there shopping one day after it was closed, and I asked the manager over there, I said, did you notice a difference between when the island was open and now that it's closed? And he says, yes, it cost us $5,000 a month. And that was in '63.
Tell about the post office. I was a kid. Well, we had our own post office at Alcatraz. And, well, it was pretty neat to have your own post office. And yet the gal was there didn't realize the power. She was a postmaster. And along with the one over in San Francisco, you only have one postmaster. She didn't realize the power that she really had.
Did you feel isolated here, or did you feel like...
No, you could get on the boat anytime the boat ran back before, I think it was 12 different times.
Did women all got along?
Oh, yeah. It was like one big family. If you needed help, there was always somebody here to help you. We never even locked our doors. I never felt insecure. I knew where the bad guy was. You don't know where he's at now.
What about the ladies club and all?
Yeah, we had a ladies club that we went together, and then we kind of put on plays for the kids, or I mean, they put on plays for us, but we kind of arranged them. Like at Christmas time, they had a Christmas play, and every year they had I don't remember what they called it, but Frontiers Day. And they had fake sheriff. Of course, the kids couldn't have toy guns on the island. And so that day they could. And he was the sheriff one time, and our son was his deputy. And he had his little toy gun, but then it was locked up over in town in the car.
Did the prisoners get to see any of this?
I beg your pardon?
Did the prisoners get to see any of this?
Oh, no. This was down in the social hall, which now is a shell as you come up the hill.
He just say no because he was scared to have to talk to the press. And those guys were getting farther away from the island. But he couldn't handle his job, yet he got the job. And he knew that I knew what he really was. But that's just a sad story, but that really took place.
There was a question over here.
I was just thinking, like as a kid, did you have like a sense of fear all the time that you knew there's all these dangerous people? I mean, right on your doorstep almost.
Sure, good question, and I can tell you just from others who were also kids on the island, I don't think any of us had any fear at all. First of all, there was a fence between us and even before you would come up the hill to anything, but we never had a sense of fear. The few inmates you saw were people that were the trustees. We'd kind of come and go to all the different families' houses, and didn't even knock on the doors or anything. Just hi, I'm here. Over there, and so no, there was no sense of fear whatsoever.
Riots or anything?
So were there any riots?
Well, kind of like a riot.
Escapes.
What?
You can talk escapes, or you can talk about Green Lizard, or you can talk.
Well, no, any riots are raising hell. When they get kind of upset about something, they would grab all their beds, there were steel beds, and raise them up and let them fall down on the floor. And you do that with 300 beds, believe me, it is something else. I could hear it halfway across coming back, and I could hear this tremendous racket. You remember this? And but they always lost. Then you go around, you just pick up certain people and you throw them in the hole. And you know just about who they were. And you go to the hole is not a good idea. That was pretty rash. And yes.
Can you describe the hole?
What?
Can you describe your experience of the hole?
All right. All of you are aware of the hole here?
Yeah.
D block?
Yes.
Well, you know what it is. How would you like to be over there? And how would you like to go in the dark hole and be stripped down and no mattress? Well, you had to try to teach them a lesson. There's some that just wanted to give up. And then at night, they got a mattress. But you pick that mattress up in the morning again, that's the dark hole where that solid door went closed. The floor, there's a reason, so they could not injure themselves. And it was pretty, did they have reduced rations? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jim, third day you got a meal?
And let your stomach get smaller and then you stuff it.
Here, in this island, one of the first questions they ask is in 62, the big break, do you think they made it? Do you think the convicts made it? Now, I know what our opinion was.
Well,
Shark bait.
I'll let Jim talk and then he was Steve. But the Anglin brothers, if there's anybody could survive in that world, they could. They grew up in the swamps of Florida and Georgia, and they were swamp rats. And if anyone could possibly make it, they could. We haven't heard anything from them, and they possibly could have made it. Who was the other guy?
Frank Morris.
Morris was the brains of the outfit. He really had the brains, and he would look for a kinder and gentler life, where those Anglin brothers, they never had anything. to start off with.
Tell about stuff you found from the escapes.
Well, when I was running a place over there, what they call when the salt water and the fresh water come together, it's a, what do you call it?
Estuary.
There's a white froth.
There's a line.
Well, it's a white froth that comes together, and that's where all this debris would gather. And I found out all kinds of things, letters, pictures, still floating in the water. And then I got also, they made a little thing for water wings. Yeah, and I picked that up and brought it back too. But we did pick, and this went on for 3 weeks, and we would pick up items that still belonged to them. Items that they would really want to have, but it was lost.
Do you think they made it?
Well, this water's terrible out here. All you gotta do is just jump into that water out there and you'll say, holy Christ. It's cold, it's just plain cold. It's something that you don't last very long in. It's not kind and considerate to your body.
But by the time the Coast Guard got out there, they found nothing. So to this day, nobody knows. There's a couple of theories in my head, and one of them was the 3 of them got on the raft they made, and they found out that it was just wouldn't support all 3 of them, so the brothers killed Morris and dropped him over, and then they were swept out to sea. The other thing is the Anglin brothers' sisters claim that they made it and they're in South America or where have you. My contention is if they were bank robbers, they weren't killers. If I was one of them and I made it and I went 4 or 5 years and I wasn't caught, I'm turning myself in because you would have so much public sympathy because you would be the only person ever known to escape from Alcatraz, and you wouldn't have time to count your money because you'd be on Jay Leno's show and you'd be on Oprah's show, you'd have books and movies. Okay, as you were walking around the cell house, you seen the typical cell, did you not?
Yeah.
Okay, did you see the telephone in the cell?
Yeah.
Nobody's seen the telephone. The telephone was the toilet. And the way they used them, they would flush them, and they would put their head in the toilet and talk through the pipes. Their voice and sound would carry through the pipes. And if they wanted more privacy, they put their head in their toilet, folded their blanket up, and put the blanket over their head, and it gave them more like a private line. And then they could talk around. In fact, those were the first cell phones. She don't think I'm serious, but at the same token, when they got mad at you, they blew up their toilets. And these were flushed with the cold bay water that Pat was talking about. And the way they did it is they would take their cup, their drinking cup, and they'd dip in there and they'd pour the water down the sink till they couldn't get any more water. Then they took their clothes off and they soaked up the rest of the water with their clothes. And then they took whatever they get their hands on, and 99 times out of 100 it was their Bible. And they'd tear it up and put it in there and light it on fire. And when it got good and hot, they'd put the mattress in the plunger, and then when that fire, it blew that porcelain toilet up. It had water and porcelain all over the place. But that was their way to get back at us. Okay, back to your question.
Any friendships formed between inmates?
Any friendships between prisoners?
Oh, sure, yeah, there was always some, but like Mr. Mahoney says, it was just respect back and forth, really. If you got too friendly with them, you're going to end up getting fired or you're going to end up getting hurt. Because the friendlier you get, then pretty soon they ask you for a piece of gum. Pretty soon they might ask you for a cigarette or bring me in this or mail this letter for me. And one of the first things you learn here, you do not give anything to or accept anything from an inmate.
the guards should have been fired for hitting a prisoner?
Well, for literally beating them up, you know. Taking clubs to them.
But you guys didn't see that.
I didn't want to participate in that, no. It's not my world, never has been. I worked for my father, he was a sheriff. And you know what? He didn't even let us carry guns. And we were dealing with some real dangerous people in the uranium mines. And I tell a lot of police today, I said, no, we did not carry guns. Because they had guns on their tables, and you go up there and they want to blow you out of the saddle, they could do it.
Question there.
What kind of prisoners were here?
What?
What kind of prisoners?
Well, there was murderers, robbers, rapists, bank robbers. What?
Mom.
Oh, yes, we had them, Mickey Cohen and that group. And, yeah.
Were you scared of any of the convicts?
No, but I gotta tell you, my young son here, he was on the boat with me a couple of times, and Mickey Cohen's girlfriend was on the boat, sitting very close to him. And she had all these furs and diamonds on her and everything coming over to visit with him. And Steve, of course, went over and he said, gee, that's pretty. She said, would you like to feel it? This fur was beautiful. And so she let Steve feel it. And he liked that. He thought that was great. But that was Mickey Cohen's girlfriend.
I worked in the clothing room for a good number of months, almost a year, and Mickey Cohen worked for me in the clothing room. And he was a Los Angeles mobster, and of course we had some young inmates here, and they all wanted to get close to him, and maybe thinking they could get. And he came to me, and he wanted a job in the clothing room. And part of the reason he wanted a job in the clothing room, with them handling the dirty clothes, etc., I let them shower every day, because that's where the shower room was at. And he asked me for a job. I says, if you do exactly what I tell you and do a good job at it, then you can work for me. If you don't, you will not stay. So the very first job I gave him was scrubbing the toilets. And he did it, and he did it in a fine way, and so he stayed there and worked in the clothing room.
Other questions?
How often were they allowed to shower?
Twice a week, Saturday and Tuesday.
They all showered together. And they really were required to shower too. You check the cells out to make sure they left their cells to go down to shower. And there was what, maybe 30, 40 at a time? And we had a few where they'd stab them in the shower, which made it kind of tough, but it did take place.
And did kitchen workers shower every day?
Yes.
So if you want to be really clean.
The ones that got to shower every day was the hospital, the kitchen, and the clothing room.
Did you hear that? If you, kitchen, hospital, and clothing room showered every day.
What was the worst job for you guys, for the guards?
What was what?
Well, most of the time the people complained about the towers. Most of the time the people complained about the towers because you were up there for 8 hours at a time. And especially at night, it got awfully long. And I used to be like on the dock tower down there, or 2 tower, and I had that at night. I'd get out on the catwalk and I'd walk around and round and round, just to keep myself awake, to be honest with you. Some people didn't mind the towers, but it got pretty boring.
And he just shook his head and went right back to fighting. But hit him in the head with a baseball. I mean, came right down across his head. They shook him up a little bit.
And they also put radio jacks in. They had 2 stations they could listen to, and they were monitored by the gun gallery out here. And they also got hot water, in 1961?
Yeah.
About 1961 before they got hot water themselves. Before that, they shaved with cold water.
Was there a lot of suicide? Was there a lot of suicide?
No. No, there was very, do you know of one? I don't know in 7 years.
I know a couple of deaths, but that was natural. I didn't know.
Well, I know where some were killed, you know, murdered, but I don't know of any suicides. Real strange.
We would like to, it's been basically 45 minutes that you guys have been chit-chatting. On behalf of the National Park Service, we really thank you. If you have questions,
this is the gentleman we're going to be hearing from. Obviously, this was then. This is initial mugshot at Alcatraz. He looks considerably better in this picture than his mugshots from McNeil Island and Leavenworth. He was sent here from Leavenworth. They considered him to be an instigator and may have been involved in some food strikes and that sort of thing. So they identified him as a troublemaker. And to make that prison safer, they sent him out here. And he was a bank robber. His interesting part of his story was his getaway vehicle. He was in the Navy when he was robbing banks. And he met another bad apple on his ship, which happened to be the USS Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which was a gunship patrolling the eastern seaboard. And there was a series of bank robberies that happened to coincide with wherever that ship was in port. And a sharp detective finally put two and two together, and they figured out that these two guys must be hiding out on that ship, which they were. And so he was found guilty. And hopefully we're going to hear the rest of the story from himself, live from Lake Wales, Florida. Any Floridians here? Wow, okay. Well, I'm going to hand it over to Ranger John. Can you give us a test, 1, 2, 3?
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Hold that in your hand.
All right, very good, Bob. It sounds great, Bob. This is John Campbell on Alcatraz.
How you doing?
I'm doing great here. Now, this is kind of something new here we're trying out. And Ian, are you going to put this on my lapel?
Put that mic right up to when he's talking.
Okay, so we're going to work this here, Bob. So, welcome, Bob. How's the weather in Florida?
It's about 75.
Well, here we are on Alcatraz, and we've got about 3,000 people here standing here waiting to hear you talk. Give them a big hand, Bob Schoglein. Listen to that roar. Fantastic, Bob. Well, I'm going to try to work. This is the first time we've ever done this here, but I think it's going to be kind of nifty.
I was pretty well trained, and I knew more about scuba diving than most people did in the early 50s when this was. And it was only invented in the middle 40s. So the inmates on Alcatraz, who don't usually recognize you until you're expert driver for a couple of years on your number, adopted me right away as a well-informed scuba diver. They wanted information on how to build scuba equipment to escape off the place. So I met all the big guys and the big shots and the old timers, and everybody talked to me, and I was among the best. I got a job there in throwing factory where we made uniforms for Crimson Baker uniforms for different prisons. And then after a while, I wanted more exercise my muscles, so I got a volunteer for a job on the work group, on the work gang. And then we started tearing down walls and building the industry buildings, and I went to work on that oil storage unit out behind the powerhouse. And
hey, Bob, Bob, can I ask you what?
Docks as a heavy equipment operator, and I liked that real well. I felt like I was kind of trusted outside the walls, and it wasn't free. Everybody had a gun on it at all times, but it didn't have the constant control. The constant control that everybody else had. No matter where you were, you just look around and see a cop or two looking at you, a guard. And they closed the place in '63, and I was shipped back to one of the later chains to where they were cleaning it out. And I ended up in Leavenworth, where I finished my sentence, about 2 years left, and then I got out. And I opened up a dive shop in '66, scuba diving shop. And closed it in '96 and moved to Florida, retired. And that's me.
Very nice, Bob. Hey, what year did you get here again on Alcatraz?
Pardon me?
What year did you arrive on Alcatraz?
Oh, I got out to Alcatraz in 58. I think it was in October 58.
And what was,
I don't remember how long I worked in that sewing outfit. A year or two, and I went on the labor gang. But I met all the big shots out there. And the labor gang, I was there for a couple, 3 years, I think. Two years for sure, maybe 3. No, it was 2 years. 2 years in the labor gang, and I went over to docks for the rest of the time.
now Bob, you mentioned hey Bob, you mentioned that you knew some of the big shots. Did you know the Birdman of Alcatraz?
Oh, yeah, Bob, upstart, I knew him pretty fair. He was in isolation all the time, but he was in his isolation cell was up by the hospital, and I was up at the hospital 3 different times. And every time I was able to talk to him, not face to face, but my voice could reach his cell and he could talk back to me. And he heard me pronouncing Spanish, but I was trying to learn Spanish. And he could help me with my Spanish lessons while I was up there. And for a person who never got any further than a 6th grade education, he spoke 5 different languages fluently. And I like Bob. And another well-known inmate there was Alvin Carpus, Creepy Carpus, everybody knows him as. We didn't call him Creepy there to the stage anyway, but I used to walk the yard with him. And Mickey Cohen, I got real friendly with Mickey Cohen there.
Hey, I got to ask you, have you seen that new movie about Mickey Cohen?
Oh, yeah, I got it in order. I'm going to get that tape when it comes out.
What was what was he like?
I know him personally because I wanted to get my fingerprints taken off my fingers and put onto my toes and transport back to my fingers, and my toe print onto my fingers. And I was asking Carpus about, Carpus had his fingerprints taken off by acid. And he says, don't do it with acid, that really, really hurts. So I said, no, I'm thinking about surgery with plastic surgery. And he said, well, I would talk to Mickey Cohen. He was a gangster in L.A., and he would have contacts maybe. So I talked to Mickey about it, and he gave me a contact with a doctor in plastic surgery in Hollywood. But when I got out, I had different plans in mind. I just never got my fingers changed, so I got the original left. And that was it.
Huh. Anybody else that a big name that you could talk about a little bit?
How about Frank Morris and the
what about Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers?
Well, they were on the same tier in the same cell block I was on. As a matter of fact, they just sold a few cells down from me, and when we marched in the dining room, we go by cells, and we have to sit down in seats according to where we come in. And they were often on the same table with me or on the table right next to me. And I talked to them all the time. In fact, Clarence Anglin, one of the brothers, worked in the barber shop, which is right across this aisle from my cell block, from my cell. I sold in 110, B110, and the barber shop was right across the aisle. So down in the docks, I occasionally would be able to get a local newspaper from San Francisco that had the tide tables in it. And when I knew they were out of the 250 population there must have been at least 100 that knew about the escape plans. And I believe if I could get them the tide tables once in a while, they would have an average idea of when the tides were running. I couldn't get every day's tide. But if I could get it 2 or 3 times a week, that would help them out a ton. So that's what I would do. I get the tides as much as possible and carry the information up to my cell block. And when Clarence got done with his haircut, I'd give him the tables and he would carry it back to the cell where he lived. And he would do the rest of the guys. And I talked to Frank Morris on the yard one time. He kept him in. He said, Bob, we want to thank you so much for getting the tables. And they can forgive, but I can't.
I got you.
I never had no association with any of them. I wouldn't talk to
What'd you think about?
This day I feel that way.
What'd you think of Alcatraz when you came back, seeing this as a national park site? Did you ever in your wildest dreams think that there'd be people out here wanting to see this joint?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, when I first heard it was open as a national park, I was tempted to maybe come out there someday and take a tour. You know, keep a low profile. Nobody would know it was me, and I just walked through the place. But I told my wife I'd like to take her out there sometime. Then all of a sudden, I heard a rumor in one of the news shows about a $100 reward for each con. And my daughter checked into it. My daughter grew up in my dive shop, and she became a scuba diver when she was pre-teen. She was a little 12-year-old. We had her in Bahamas scuba diving already. And now she's a manager of the Divers Direct in Key West, Florida. And she found out on this reunion meeting that they have every August for a reunion of celebrations. And she contacted Alcatraz for me and told me that I was alive, and if she would have known if you'd be willing to accept me out there the following year. So soon enough, I got a call from one of the rangers out there, and set up a meeting and went out there and gave my little talk of what I thought about the place, my story about Alcatraz, and the following life, and how I turned out, and I was really, truly amazed. I wasn't expecting any kind of reception like that. You know, we were treated, we were feared and dreaded people. And going out there, they treated me like a rock star or something. I just couldn't comprehend the treatment I got. It was beautiful, fantastic.
This is the little blonde ranger. Good to hear you, Bob. I'm glad you came out in 2005.
But Bob, Lori Brosnan's here, and she ran the alumni that year, and I was off the island, but I've seen your video. You're a great speaker. You had the room controlled there, and I guess that's all those years of giving scuba diving lessons, huh?
Oh yeah. I've been teaching for years at that time. I just quit in '96. Oh boy, which one? If you're talking about the rock, it's really bad. I mean, there's no similarity there whatsoever.
I'll go with you there.
Escape from Alcatraz.
How about Escape from Alcatraz? What did you think of that?
Well, Escape from Alcatraz is really pretty true, but they've taken a lot of liberties. I mean, they could just walk around and meet together in the dining room and have plans to do this and do that. And we had to do it all on the slide. There was no walking around like a country club. You had to get out of your cells and go visit other cells. So there's all the slide stuff, and it took a lot of liberties with that movie, but there's a lot of basic truth to it.
Very good, very good. More questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, what was his impression? What was his feeling when he found out he was going to get sent to Alcatraz?
Yeah, Bob, what was your feeling when you found out that you were going to be sent to Alcatraz?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. I knew what kind of a convict I was, what kind of man I was, and the stories I've heard about Alcatraz, I couldn't believe they were sending me there. I mean, I didn't think I'd fit. I wasn't the type, I didn't think. And I was kind of worried about the treatment I would get when I got there with the reputation I had. But I guess as long as you mind your own business, do your own time, people seem to leave you alone. You know, I was either too big, too ugly, or too mean to do anything but.
And you've probably seen a Hollywood movie before you came here anyway, right?
Do what?
Well, there had been movies. I mean, you probably saw a movie and knew a little bit about the lore of Alcatraz before coming here too, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've heard my own stories about the Alcatraz, what they were like out there. So I was really uptight about going there.
Huh. Yes, ma'am.
Was he more fearful of the other inmates, or was he fearful of how the guards?
Question is, were you more fearful of the convicts out here or the officers?
Oh, convicts.
Without a doubt, yeah.
The guards ain't gonna do nothing else. You react first. If you go to any prison, especially Alcatraz, put a chip on your shoulder, and when they say night, you holler day, and when they say right, you holler wrong, and defy them constantly, you're asking for trouble. But if you go there and do the work you're assigned to, eat your meals, do it and do your time to yourself, You get along pretty well with the guards. I never did like the guards, and I never trusted the guards. I would never trust a guard, but I got along with them.
Next question. Yes?
If you would say one thing to the next generation about your experience, what would it be?
If you were to say one thing to the next generation of kids growing up, what would you say?
What was that again?
What would you say to the next generation, young kids coming up, if you were going to say something to them, what would you say?
A generation of criminals?
More just young people. What would you have any suggestions to those young kids?
Oh, about staying straight? Oh, definitely stay. I mean, there's work out there, and whatever you earn is going to be a whole lot of money you never make stealing. You steal, I don't care how much you steal and how often you steal it, and you get away with it. But once you're caught, you do more time, and you take back how many years you're doing time now, and equal those years to the amount of money you got, it doesn't pay whatsoever. Like I said, bike job, my bike everybody was really good. It's real high pay, but the retirement benefits really suck.
Yes, ma'am.
What did his wife think when he told her that he was on Alcatraz?
The question is, what did your wife think when you told her that you'd been on the rock?
Oh, now see, there again, all my friends that come to my diving classes, everything, I'm just a scuba diver, I'm just an instructor. I've never mentioned anything about that rock to anybody until I start getting friendly and close to somebody. If it's more than just a passing friendship, if I start getting close, then I tell them my past before they hear about it from somebody else. And my neighbors that way. Where I live now, I told my neighbors on all sides of me and across the street who I am and what I did, so that they don't hear about it from somebody else later on. And my wife, when I told her that, she kind of looked at me for a while because I'd asked her to go to the Bahamas with me on a trip. And she was a little bit shy, and I told her my past, and then she was really shy. But she eventually had, she took a week to think about it and come back and said, okay, I'll go on your trip, provided I pay my own way. And so there's no strings. That's okay with me. It saved me money. We made our trip, and then from there on in, I took her out snorkeling in the Bahamas, and she liked it so much that when we got home, she took a scuba class, and eventually we got married.
How long have you been married, Bob?
Oh, let's see, we got married in 86. About 20-some years.
More questions, folks. Yes, sir.
What was his crime?
What was your crime again, Bob?
Bank robbery.
Nice.
Banks for a living.
The young man just said nice. That's what he said.
Well, see, bank robbery was really easy because everybody was told back in those days, in the 50s, they were instructed at the banks to don't argue with the guy when they come with a gun, just give them all the money and we'll catch them later on. So they were associating with us, they worked for us, and we just took all the money that they passed over to us and walked out the door. It was really easy to do. Nowadays they got cameras and they got everything bad nowadays.
Were you scared? I gotta ask you. Were you scared going into a situation like that,
No,
Rob?
I had a gun. I was never scared. I had the weapons. I was in control, in charge.
Yeah.
How much money?
How much? But Ian wants to know how much money are we talking about?
Well, see, 63,000 from one. There was 50,000. There was a couple hundred thousand. Just over years.
That was big money back in the day, right?
Well, yeah, but see, it just wasn't for one guy. It was all split up, and there was traveling money and there's living money. And when you don't have a job, you got to pay for hotels and living expenses. It goes fast.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there any particular inmates here that he despised?
Were there? The question is, were there any inmates that you despised on the rock?
Despised?
Yes, sir.
Well,
did you ever know any snitches out here?
Well, the snitches I definitely despise. I was rock or any other place. I can't tolerate snitches. And that goes without saying, no matter what prison they're in. And, but if I do one there, I would not kill him there because he's doing time. And if I kill him, he stopped doing time. No, I
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any, like, things that prisoners did, like,
You want to know what the prisoners did on the island?
yeah, that the guards didn't know?
That the guards didn't know. That's the question. What did you guys get over on the guards, I guess is what you're trying to say.
What we do where?
She wants to know if you know, you guys...
Contraband.
Yeah, contraband, you know, the activities. Did you see that kind of activity happen out here?
Oh, yeah, there was minor gambling. We had nothing there. We didn't have a commissary. We were issued a 3 packs of cigarettes a week. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, they come back with a packet of wing cigarettes. And, well, if you didn't smoke cigarettes, they had pipe tobacco they give you. And a pipe they would offer every 3 months, give you a pipe. And we had minor gambling, you know, when you bet on Matt Dillon, when you go to shoot somebody, that, you know, when you lose, you bet a couple of cigarettes on it, out of your pack of wings. But we didn't really have anything to bet with.
How about homebrew?
Yeah, Ian's asking about homebrew. Did you see that activity out here?
What?
Homebrew, booze.
Yes, it's both. Actually, I've seen actual liquor there. In fact, I had a couple shots myself. And homebrew.
How did they...
Very rare.
Oh, it was rare.
Talk about the actual liquor. A friendly guard apparently brought it in for one of my friends, and he helped me, and he let me sample some of it with him. But I never did ask him what the guard was or what his name was. I didn't want to know. And but there was at least one guard I knew bought his liquor, and I knew a guy that made liquor there. But that was okay. They're selling too because you couldn't really travel with anything. It had to be right there where you in the salt we couldn't do it. It had to be at a place of work.
I got a question. Did he ever spend any time in the hole?
Did you ever spend any time in the hole, Bob?
You know, yeah. We had a week there for having contraband myself.
How many days did you spend in the hole?
7 days. One of those blackout cells.
So the cell was dark.
Oh, yeah. Had a solid door front. It was one of those blackout cells. It was 12 or 13, something like that. Isolation cell.
How did you sleep in that cell?
On the floor and lightly, because at night the toilet would tore out. And at night the rats would come out, and if you didn't shave your your 2 pieces of bread, one of them for the rats, they would eat you. So I spent the night specially feeding the rats to keep it away from me and spending my time.
Yes, sir. Oh, well, the young man just asked how you got in the hole.
I had contraband in myself, illegal contraband.
And so he wants to know what that was.
I don't remember anymore, some kind of brochure or something about Alcatraz.
Okay. Did you ever make a weapon out here?
Weapon?
Yeah.
No. I had access to all kinds of weapons in the garage. I worked as a mechanic also, where you got screwdrivers and tire irons and pliers and all kinds of tools. I had all the weapons I wanted out in the dock. I just couldn't carry them up to the cell because we had to go through so many metal detectors. We had to go through metal detectors everywhere. Going out to the yard, going to take your shower, coming back from your shower, coming back from the yard, you go through metal detectors wherever you go before you get in and out of your cell. So there's not really any property carrying a weapon on your body.